It looks like the Mercedes-Benz V Class, but there's more to it. This is the Mercedes-Benz EQV, an electric van, which, according to the spec sheet, can drive over 500 kilometers on a single charge. Spoiler alert, it can't. So, what's the real life range? Subscribe, or I won't tell you. The Mercedes-Benz EQV is, of course, based on the V Class, which underwent a facelift in 2019. I'll start with the facelift and then I'll go into detail about the electric side of it. External changes are, well, apparently there are some changes, but from what I can tell, it's mainly new paint colors and new wheel designs. In case of the EQV, there is also a new slick grille, similar to that on the EQC electric SUV. Under the bonnet of the internal combustion engine versions is a 4-cylinder diesel motor producing 163, 190 or 239 horsepower. The latter is a new addition to the lineup. All engines use an average of around 6 liters of diesel per 100 kilometers, with the least powerful version being, at least on paper, the least economical one. Mercedes promises the new engines are cleaner and better in terms of NHV. The 7G-tronic transmission has been replaced with the 9G-tronic transmission, which is standard on the two more powerful engine variants. As standard, the V Class is rear-wheel drive, but optionally it can be ordered in all-wheel drive. Even the all-wheel drive model is below 2 meters high, and this means it can drive into underground or multi-story garages. I've tried it a number of times, but I'm always scared. The biggest changes are on the inside, one actually, and that's MBUX. Earlier it was introduced on the new Sprinter, and the V Class got it as a part of this facelift. The MBUX is a sophisticated infotainment system, which you may have seen in recent Mercedes-Benz passenger cars. Depending on the model and generation, it can be operated using touchpads on the steering wheel, a touchpad on the center console, a touch screen, as well as voice commands. This is a slightly simpler setup without the controls on the steering wheel. We'll talk about that in a moment. The MBUX is intuitive to use, all the functions and information is easy to access and understand. The system is connected to the internet, so you get over-the-air updates, the system can connect to a mobile app, there is current traffic information, context search, and much more. In my opinion, this is one of the best, if not the best, currently available infotainment systems on the market. And now the steering wheel. It's been a while since I've driven a V Class, so switching from newer Mercedes cars was like a trip back in time. The EQV is an EV, so one could assume it should be modern. Meanwhile, you start the car by turning a key in the ignition. It's natural, so I didn't notice at first until my girlfriend pointed it out to me. The instrument cluster and everything around it is so last generation. The cruise control is still operated with a lever behind the steering wheel, like in older Mercedes models. There are analog dials, and the buttons on the steering wheel are used to operate a very simple trip computer. Perhaps the idea is that fleet drivers switching cars should feel at home. On the other hand, I get the impression the EQV was a rush job because Mercedes didn't even bother to get rid of the filler cap. The charging socket is on the left corner of the front bumper. The EQV comes in two lengths, the long and extra long wheelbase, which means 320 and 343 centimeters respectively. This translates into a total length of 514 or 537 centimeters. Both versions come in 6 to 8 seater configurations, the difference being the cargo space. More on that later. This is the long wheelbase model, smaller of the two on offer. Performance is almost identical, with the extra long wheelbase model having just 1 kilometer shorter range. Both cars are front-wheel drive, produce 204 horsepower and 362 Nm of torque. Both have a top speed of 140 km per hour, which can be raised to 160. Both get liquid-cooled lithium-ion batteries, 90 kWh capacity net. Mercedes doesn't provide official 0 to 100 km per hour time, and I suspect an average client couldn't care less. But since I bought one of those GPS devices, I checked it anyway. In comfort mode, the Mercedes-Benz EQV does 0 to 100 km per hour in 11.5 seconds and 80 to 120 km per hour in 8.7 seconds. In sport mode, it's 11.4 and 8.6 seconds respectively, so the difference is negligible. And now let's talk energy consumption and range. This car's deal maker or deal breaker. Depending on the date of press release and or spec sheet, the EQV's energy consumption is anything between 20.6 and 36.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which translates into 531 to 275 kilometers range, and this is WLTP data. Driving on the motorway, I reached as much as 39 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Disclaimer, the motorway speed limit in Poland is 140 kilometers per hour, whereas in most of Europe it's 120 or 130 kilometers per hour. Anyway, I don't expect the EQV to drive faster than 120 on short stretches of ring roads when delivering hotel guests to the airport and back. Most of the time, the EQV will probably sit in city traffic. When I got off the motorway, I got the energy consumption down to about 29 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers while driving on roads like this, 90 kilometers per hour tops, and slower through some villages. I thought I could get better results in the city, where I would take advantage of automatic radar-based recuperation, or I could use recuperation braking adjusted with the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Unfortunately, city driving results were unsatisfactory, and energy use exceeded 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. In comfort mode, I reached 35 kilowatt hours, and in Eco Plus, I got it down to about 32. The E and E Plus modes cut power, torque, and reduce climate control, so there wasn't much more I could do to get better results, perhaps except for changing November weather to spring. What's EQV's real-life range then? Well, we take 90 kilowatt hours battery capacity and divide it by the energy use. At 90 kilometers per hour, I would get more than 300 kilometers. On the motorway, at 140, I would have to recharge after about 230. In the city, it looks like 260, 270. Is that good, bad? Well, that depends. I have a Warsaw-based example, so if you live in Berlin, London, Paris, or wherever else, do your own math. If you're buying an EQV to shuttle guests between a hotel in the Warsaw city center and the Chopin airport, you could probably get 6 round trips in an 8-hour workday. This is Warsaw in late 2020, and we still don't have a rapid charger at the airport. Or any charger, for that matter. We're talking about the capital of a large European country. Come to think of it, there aren't any rapid chargers on the way from the airport to the city center either. You'd have to make a detour, preferably to some shopping mall. And in the Warsaw city center, there is one rapid charger, and predictably, it is in a shopping center, so the hotel would have to install its own wall box. You'd have to hope a client in a Tesla doesn't need to charge overnight, because clients are more important, obviously. So what are the charging times? The EQV takes up to 110 kilowatts from a CCS plug. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of rapid chargers faster than 50 kilowatts anywhere in Warsaw. However, assuming one was available, it would take about 45 minutes to charge from 10 to 80%. More than an hour from a 50 kilowatt charger. And using an 11 kilowatt wall box, you'd charge to full overnight. Obviously, this is not a viable hotel shuttle option in Warsaw, Poland in late 2020. Does it work for you? Where would that be? Drop me a comment. Perhaps the EQV could be a family runabout then. 6 to 8 seats with easy access, decent sized boot. Well, that's more like it. Driving an EV, even around Warsaw, has some benefits. I'll use a Warsaw-based example again. Assuming you're living in one of Warsaw's satellite towns and you need to get to one of Warsaw's business centers, you'd be covering around 70, maybe 100 kilometers a day. That includes detours for shopping, dropping off and picking up kids from various activities, etc. And EVs can use bus lanes as well as park for free in the city center. At the end of day 1, you easily have enough charge for day 2 if for some reason you cannot charge overnight. If you have a wall box at home, you'll recharge fully overnight. And if you're charging from a regular 230-volt socket, you'd regain about 70 to maybe 100 kilometers range. So better get a wall box and maybe some solar panels as well, as it could make your charging a lot cheaper and greener. Okay, so now you know the EQV business case. And how is it to drive? It's comfortable enough. Low center of gravity means the EQV is good around corners, not as in sporty driving, but, around the roundabout. The suspension is good enough on uncomplicated imperfections in the road. The car goes over speed bumps without too much jitter. The seats are comfortable, they're electric with a memory function, heated. However, for an EV, soundproofing could be better. Much better. But in the end, this is a van. If this is your first time driving a big van like this, you'll be surprised at how easy it is to maneuver this more than 5 meters long car. You're sitting almost over the front axle. There is also a 360-degree camera and parking sensors, although I wouldn't mind a parking assistant. It's an option apparently. Also, the driver assist systems are very basic. If you want a semi-autonomous family car, you have to go SUV. In the front, I don't like that the cup holders, the phone cubby and the charging ports are down by the floor. If I were a shuttle driver, I'd probably want the phone somewhere where I could see it, so I won't forget it getting out to get my passengers from the arrivals hall. The door pockets are too low, so if you are driving and you want to reach a bottle of water, you really have to lean down. Also, I cannot set the driver's armrest as high as I would like to. In this test car, there are 4 individual seats in the back. Each has an ISOFIX mounting point. Passengers in the second row don't get cup holders or USB charging ports. The third row passengers get cup holders and 12-volt sockets, but they cannot access climate control settings. The seats are heavy, difficult to move, fold, remove, and putting them back in is even worse. It's not something you want to attempt on your own. Maximum cargo volume for the long wheelbase model is 1030 liters. The extra long wheelbase gets 1410 liters. That's before you remove the seats. But hold your horses, you can't haul heavy stuff back here, because the gross vehicle weight rating for this car is still 3.5 tons, and the maximum load is, wait for it, only 563 kilograms. Yes, this car weighs almost 3 tons. In a 6-seater like this one, I could travel along with only 4 of my clones, not 5, because then we would exceed the GVWR limit. And for the same reason, the EQV cannot tow trailers, at least here in Europe. And now for the pricing. The EQV starts at €69,600, just $1,000 more for the extra long wheelbase model. This test car costs about €86,000. The Mercedes-Benz EQV can be useful in zero-emission zones where the charging infrastructure is developed. Here in Poland, it's either an expensive token of a company's green credentials or a very expensive family hauler for the city. And how would you put the EQV to good use? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time. And don't forget to subscribe and like the video, as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching. and I will see you in the next one.